Can MIDI make you a better worship guitarist? Let's talk about it. Now, obviously, that's a little bit of clickbait, but I will talk about how I use MIDI in my worship experience because I also lead worship. I'm a worship pastor. And if there are times where I play electric guitar, whether it's a Wednesday night for students or if we are down a EG2 or just a rhythm guitar, there will be some Sundays where I do play electric. Or events like that, I do play electric. But most of the time, 90% of the time, I am singing. And so what this does, it helps me get rid of the distractions that can come with a bigger pedal board or even just any pedal board, especially with hitting a lot of buttons. This makes it simple. So stick around, it's going to be a fun one. So before we hop into situational examples on how I use a MIDI controller on my board, I just wanted to talk about the MIDI controller that I am using currently. This is the Morningstar MC6 Mark II, and there are so many MIDI controllers out there today. Pirate MIDI, you have Morningstar, you have Disaster Area, you even have loopers, true bypass loopers. That's the next level up from MIDI, but I found that this is a little bit more fun, especially if you're on the tech side of things. You enjoy that side of guitar and pedals, and if not, totally fine. There's always going to be people that are like, true bypass is the best, and you know, I'm good with just clicking my pedals on and off and having a loud like no hate against those people, I've always been very analytical. I've loved diving into the creative side of technology, and so that's what I've enjoyed with MIDI, and I'm going to show you how I use this almost as if this was a multi-effect, as if this was a Helix, or if this was a Quad Cortex, but with physical pedals. And there may be questions like, why don't you just buy a Helix or an HX Stomp or a Quad Cortex? Or, you know, I started off with a Podco. If you guys don't remember, that's what came out a couple years ago. Now, I didn't start playing electric guitar when the Podco came out. I played electric guitar when I was a lot younger, but I just didn't really, it wasn't a necessity for me because a lot of times I was leading worship with an acoustic guitar, and I always had electric. But as bands change and people come and go, I found there was a need for electric guitarists on Wednesday nights for students. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to pick this back up. And so I started off with Podgo, downloaded some Tone Factor stuff. At the time it was just David Hislop, and downloaded some of his stuff, and it sounded great. It was probably, honestly, the best my tone has ever been. And it was amazing. It was great, and it was a way for me to feel confident in what I was playing while I was learning. But the more I dove into guitar sounds and pedals, you find these individual pedals that you find you're like, oh, I love the sound of that. And so there's a connection that you have with that pedal and with your sound, and the more confidently you play, the better your tone is going to be. If there's any tip to learning guitarist, is know your parts and play confidently, because two people that play the exact same part, one can be confident and one could be just timid with it. The confident player is going to sound a lot better, and that's when people say tone is in the fingers. It's true, and it goes back to what I said in my first video. Why guitar tone matters in a church environment is to aid for this non-distracting experience so that people can experience the Lord. That's the difference between worship music and secular music. Is secular music, especially with guitars, all the spotlight is on the person that's doing the solo. All the spotlight is on the band. With worship music, we are trying to just reflect Jesus. We're trying with the lyrics, with the melodies. Music in general is so emotional. And you're able to say things in songs. If you know any secular music, you're like, man, that's just such a good lyric, because it says something that you couldn't say just in a normal sentence. And so with worship music, it allows us to express something that we couldn't say, or it's harder to say in real life. And so it's able to put words to what we're feeling in the moment and express our love for the Lord and our gratitude and our thanks, but also just speaks to us in a way of saying, oh, this is a reminder, this is what the Lord does. This is what God does. And so whether you're singing, whether you're playing guitar, when you are on stage, you're bringing people into that experience. You're bringing people into the presence of the Lord that is in the room. You know, there's so many verses of King David that he's singing, and it says playing the harp to the Lord. You know, there's so much to worship music that I get overwhelmed, and you know, I'm barely even brushing it. But all that to say, I dove way too deep into it. Let's dive into how I use MIDI on my board. And again, I'm going to be using my Squier offset Telecaster with a Bixby install. These are Rebel pickups that I have installed in here. They look really cool, but they sound really, really good. They're pretty much like a 50-50 P90 Telecaster pickup. They sound really good. And this is just, right now, this is my go-to guitar when I'm playing, so. All right, here's the board. I'm not going to go through all of this again. Now, it does look different. As you can see, I have this is actually a Wish.com Klon. There was a deal, and I was like, you know what? Worst case, it's terrible. And right now, I just plugged it in, just put it on the board. And I'm running it after the Golden Boy. It's the classic, if you guys watch the JHS show, it's the classic blues breaker into a Klon. But I'm running it more as like a dirty boost post my Golden Boy. And right now, it sounds really good. Gives kind of this high mids boost for solos. Now, I'm not a solos player, but if I ever was, that'd be a good thing. So right here, I literally do not need anything right there, but just as a placeholder for right now, it looks great. So yeah, so here's the board. Right now, my MIDI setup is, so here's my MC6 Mark II. Go check out Pedalnetics. This is pretty much the equivalent of another MC6 Mark II, but just as an aux controller for this. So these buttons is the second page of the Morningstar. Pedalnetics, link in my description. They have some awesome stuff for all your needs, whether it's Helix, whether it's just extra switches for Strymon stuff. They make so many little 3D printed aux switches that are just fantastic. So that's what I'm using this for, so that pretty much I have a Helix at my feet instead of having to tap multiple pedals up here. I can just have it all at my feet, and without even looking, a lot of times I can press these buttons. And so I also have a Disaster Area MIDI Box 4. This converts 5-pin MIDI cable out of the Morningstar into it, and it converts it to TRS MIDI for the Golden Boy, for the Echolution 3, the Revelation, so that I can send MIDI there. And then I have these WIDI jacks for not only for the Stratus, because it needs a host. It uses that, but not only for that, is I can also connect this to our iPad that runs Prime loops. And let's say there's a Wednesday or an event that we're doing, or someone that's not as familiar with running loops from the drums, is how we do it at our church. I can go tab up to our next page, and I can use my MIDI controller to control the loop. So I can press play, stop, next song, back a song, or next section, back a section, turn the BPM up and down. I can also use these switches to control it as well. Turn just a generic pad on and off. All sorts of things, which is really cool. Like we had an event not too long ago to where the drummer was like, all right, we need this transition. It's really hard for me to do this fill and hit next on the iPad. I was like, okay, I got you. So during that transition, I just hit next, and it got us to the next BPM, the next click. We don't really run loops. We, most of the time, 90% of the time, we just run clicks. And so this got us to the next BPM of the song while he was doing that, like a drum fill transition. So super cool stuff. And that's how I use that. And then, but here's on my main page, I'm going to show you how I set up my board. So this is my always on, just always a tap tempo. I have this at my foot right next to my volume, so I can just tap my tempo. Now, the Witty stuff kind of freaks out as I'm sending that, but it doesn't mess up anything. But I can just tap my tempo. It's super simple. I can just kind of move my heel. It doesn't have to be loud. You know, I can just kind of press it, you know, or get really fast with it. And it's super nice, especially with this. It's a little bit less loud than the actual Morningstar, so that's there. Then moving on to this next button, this is my just regular reverb. So as you see the Revelation change, this one says swells. It says swells there. So as I press that, I also have made a long message to remind me. When I press it, that's my normal reverb setting. So this is my ambient reverb, as you can see right there. This is my setting for just ambient reverb. So I have all three of my reverb settings just right here. Real quick access just at the tip of my foot to where I don't really have to think about it. And my swell reverb preset. Moving to the next one, this is my just quarter note delay, dotted eighth delay. And those are just back and forth. I can just go between quarter inch or dotted eighth super quick. If I double press this, it moves to a very long, just quarter note, more mix, more repeats. If I double press this one, it moves on to a dual delay with a long, a high mix, long repeats. We move up. Let's go to this. These three control my Stratus. I did a whole video on this. This turns on the vibrato, and this one turns on the tremolo. Now, they did an update to where there's now CC controls. So now I can have both of these on at the same time if I wanted to. And then this just turns them both off. So if I have the tremolo on, I can turn it off. If I have the vibrato on, I can turn it off. Or I can stack them. Or I can always change these to really be any effect that I want to be in there. But these are the ones that I use the most, vibrato and tremolo. But I can always switch this message to send to the first pedal in my chain, which is a chorus. So then we move on to these last three up here. These are all controlling the Golden Boy. And I have these as my gain stages. Instead of stacking, instead of saying, all right, I want this sound and this sound. And also the gain cycle on this is really tricky, especially if you're having to press it twice and move through those gain stages, and you have to go to the highest gain to get back to the lowest gain. It's not the best. And so I recommend using Midi for this at any time. And so here is the purple clipping option, which is, I think they call it like the Royal, like it's very close to the same clipping option as the King of Tone or the Prince of Tone. In the overdrive setting. So I've really been loving this purple setting. I was using the blue for a while, but I just changed over to this. It has a little bit more saturation. And I bump up the bass, bump up the mids a little bit, bring back the treble, because the King of Tone has a little bit more mids, and I just wanted some beefiness. So this button puts my purple overdrive at 75% of the gain cycle. And because I'm running my amp pretty clean, the gain is pretty high up there. And then this brings my drive to 100%. So 75%, 100%, and then this button is 100% again, but switches over to the green clipping option, which is a lot more saturated and heavier, if that makes any sense. So I usually just go through these for my gain stages. Like I said, I don't really use this as of right now. And then if I really need more saturation or any more volume, I could just hit this boost button. And that's, we're in distortion land, boosting into the green. So, yeah, let's do some sound samples, just running through everything that I have. So, well, actually, let me tune first. This is the Rockstock Nano Tuner. This is one of the best tuners that I found out there, especially for saving space. All right, let's go ahead and check it out. So, right now I'm on my neck pickup. So with this at 75%, I'm able to, still get some clean. But there's still some texture, there's some girth there. Let's flip to the bridge pickup. So. sounding overdrive, and that's just a 75%. Let's go ahead and kick it to 100%. 75, 100. So it is a subtle difference, but it's not. It just gives you that next step up. And then I can even go to the neck pickup on 100% and just. It's still nice and clean. It cleans up well. %. Let's go back to the bridge. If I ever needed to boost that, you know, I could. And obviously I can always boost any of these. So if I just wanted a little bit more of 100% of purple, you know, I can always boost it a little bit and adjust that. So yeah, that's that. And then let's go ahead and go through the reverbs. This is my ambient setting. Swells. Great stuff. And then if I hit a wrong note, I can just go back to my normal setting and it'll slowly fade down. That's the great thing about the Jet Revelation is between settings, it fades to it. It doesn't just quickly cut off and jump to it. So then let's go ahead and check out my delay. So back to our normal reverb. That's usually where I set it. This is dotted A. Like I said, I could double press that. This thing can do some crazy things. This is with the jump on it.
It's a little harsh. I don't think I would ever use that. Maybe in a recording thing, but and if I don't press this one, ping pong dual delay. So great stuff. We talked about the Stratus. Stack them.
So that's just an example on how I use MIDI personally and how it helps me just be able to lead in the moment better, to not have to think about how I'm going to stack things. I know where everything is at my feet instead of having to jump around and do little twists and tiptoes on things. For me, that helps me lead better in the room and not be distracted and focus on the room, focus on leading students and focus on leading the adults that come here on Sunday. And so hope that helps. If you have any questions about MIDI, Morningstar has some great resources, some great videos talking about how to set up your MIDI controller, do what you want to do. But I really do think that MIDI is the future of pedals. I think more and more pedal makers are adding MIDI controls to their setups just because for this reason alone. And a lot of like if you know RJM or Fender just released a loop switcher, they can also send MIDI. It's bringing analog pedals to the digital world and the digital workflow of things of pressing a button and a lot of things change. I set mine more of like a stompbox mode if you're familiar with Helix, as you guys saw, but that's how I easily just kind of go through things. And go check out all the things in my description. Click on those links. It's just a way that you can help out this channel. And subscribe and like. You know, that helps out this channel as well. If you want to see more, comment below if you have a video idea that I can do. Like I said, I'm just doing this in my free time. This is not a full-time job. This is just for fun, but also just to help encourage y'all and help y'all, give you some resources for Sundays and Wednesdays for your worship services. So, see y'all.